Welcome back. Whoa, okay. I'm very excited for this. Welcome back. If you haven't already, make sure you've watched part 1 and 2 first. Part 1 talks all about work visas and how you can get a company to sponsor your work visa. Part 2 is all about resumes and interview tips. So in this video, we'll be talking more about the tech VC scene and also just some more tips on how to look for appropriate roles and what are some lesser known sources you can go to.
Yeah.
Do you have, like, what are your go-to platforms right now?
Depending on the job or the sector, like there's various ones out here. So things like JobStreet, JobsDB, Monster.com, all of the recruitment firms are going to have different platforms. There's other smaller ones like Glints, which is it's more kind of focused on some of the startup-y companies.
Is that APAC focused?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of kind of like job board type companies that are specific for like either Singapore or the region. Like
I don't know about you guys, but my very first job out of university, I found it through AngelList. Is that
AngelList? Oh yeah. We are actually an investor in AngelList as well.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Dang. So use AngelList.
AngelList is better for the States.
Yeah, I think North America. Yeah, North America. But it's good if you want to be in a startup tech space because they also show you like not just salary but also maybe equity, like different options there are. It's pretty nicely laid out, simple to use. But another one we were just talking about is, for example, Tech in Asia.
Yeah.
It's a like editorial publication.
I actually think if you're wanting to go into the tech startup space, like going into like Tech in Asia, KR Asia, Deal Street Asia, and E27. All of these are the regional sort of media for tech startups. By reading them for say a good 2-3 months of articles up until you get here, you'll be much better up to speed with what's going on in the tech scene over here, which if you're going for the tech space specifically, we want to know that you're up to date. If you're talking about, like, you'll see Grab and Gojek come up all the time. If someone's only talking about the big unicorns here, I get a bit bored because I hear them talked about all the time. Yes, they are great, whatever, but that's not everything.
There's also a lot of other unicorns.
There's a lot of other unicorns. There's a lot of exciting startups that are at earlier stage. When people show me that they have knowledge of that kind of stuff, I'm like, cool, you've done your research. Whatever company, doesn't matter if it's in tech or not, research who the competitors are. Because even if a company is so self-indulgent that they're talking about them, they only want to talk about themselves, you can ask a challenging question even in the interview and say, what are you guys doing to compete with X company or Y company who are in their space? It'll put them on the back feet, and if they're a good company to work for, they should be impressed that you're asking quite a tricky question.
I just realized something also as well. I feel like knowing general stats about Southeast Asia as well is really important. Like, for example, population size, like what are the market size for that industry?
100%.
Like if you can drop Indonesia's population, this is why this is a good market to go after, especially for like case studies and stuff. You want to have ballpark range.
Yeah, it's genuinely things like that, like knowing the
disposable income. For example.
Like knowing roughly the kind of income level, what stage of development they're at, what the population size is, what even things like what religions there are in each country, the languages. The more you can show consideration, knowledge, understanding, even history, politics, whatever it is, the more of that there is, the more we feel you're going to be comfortable coming over here.
We're going to dive a little bit deeper into the VC tech space now. Let's start with trying to get a job at a VC first, and then we'll go into more technical roles.
The chances, honestly, there are very few, if we're talking Southeast Asia specifically, there are very few VCs. Although the number I think is actually topping 200, the number of high quality regional ones is very few. And we will tend to focus on those who already have experience of the region.
Or at an international well-known VC.
Yeah, even then,
like, not really.
Yeah, no, we would probably prioritize local VC experience. But if you're coming in as on the investment side as an analyst, typically you're one of the rare people who manage to come over into a VC, and I suppose that is the exception. Is if someone's creating a new VC, there might be opportunities, especially if it's coming from another part of the world. Yeah. So that might be one way to do it. Is look at who is looking to invest in Southeast Asia from your country, and if someone's setting up a VC around that, then that could be the right route. But generally, because we need to optimize for, it's things like language as well. Like we need people who are, a lot of the companies that we're looking at are companies that are fully in Vietnamese. There is no English language. We need someone who can do searches in Vietnamese. It's that basic sometimes.
Well, not just that, but I think also in terms of deal flow, right?
Yeah.
Like you usually would need to have a pretty good network in the region
network
here.
Exactly. It's network. It's understanding why would a certain type of company work in a certain country. If you've come from a completely different part of the world, that's going to be tricky. So that's the kind of first thing. I know it's not great news for a lot of you, but there are routes. And what I tend to say to people who are thinking about getting into VC is treat it like a long-term plan. I get a lot of people who are just walking out of 2 years in consultancy or 2 years in banking, and they come to the job interview and they're like, well, I'm a bit bored of banking, so I thought I'd try VC. Or I feel it's the time I want to do. Or yeah, VC's quite sexy, so I want to go and do it. Like, no, these are not the way. Yeah. These are the ways to get me by the end of the half-hour interview to go absolutely no way. You have to demonstrate something extra. You really need to have done your research, and if you've got an experience in the local tech startup scene, anywhere in Southeast Asia, actually the prime place is Indonesia. That's one of the most exciting tech startup ecosystems because there's such a large population, and they've opened up in terms of how the government's enthusiastic about the tech startup scene, and we're seeing unicorns coming out of it. Not enough people are bold enough and brave enough to go over to Jakarta, but long term, that's an amazing place to get some exposure. Try and get anything where you're going to get exposure to the as close as you can to the strategic decision making. I know that's hard in the early part of your career, but the closer you get to the strategic decision making, you start to understand how these businesses are built, and then you understand how they go about their fundraising, and then when you learn how they do their fundraising, and how they pitch to VCs, then you start to also later on get an understanding of how, on the VC side of things, do we decide where to park our money in a company.
Well, also with a lot of VCs, I think a lot of them also come from being a founder themselves.
Yes.
Sometimes that's what makes a VC a good VC, is being able to empathize because they were once a founder.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. The other thing you definitely can do is going to get internship experience. Like if someone's done 2 or 3, I know it's difficult sometimes, but if you've got like 2 or 3 internship experiences at different VCs in different parts of the world, especially, then I know you've probably got a good understanding of the deal flow, of like identifying companies in the first place, doing the hard grind of the research. You've probably had exposure to how the decision-making process is done by the investment committee. And you also probably have a feel for, okay, once we have invested in something, what happens to the company afterwards? How do we interact with them? And the different styles as well, because most VCs have very unique styles with how they interact. There'll be some similarities between VCs, but there's also major differences as well. Okay. So getting a feel for different styles of VC that maybe look at different industries as well is super helpful. The other major tip I personally, that really, it does put me off a lot of people, is why do you want, I always ask, like, why do you want to go into VC? And you get people saying, oh, because I want to start a startup. I want to be a founder one day. It's like, well, this is not the route to do that. It's a different skill set as well. Now, while we will look preferentially on people who have tried to start something and got that entrepreneurial kind of startup feel, that done something in that space before, it works that way. But if you join a VC, you're not going to learn the skills to start a business. You will learn lots of amazing things. You'll get an amazing network. You'll probably understand the fundraising process much better, and you'll know how to navigate that much better. Absolutely, but it's not. I don't see many successful founders going through a VC.
Okay. Well, on that note, what would you like to hear? I know there's no cookie cutter answer, but what are some of the more impressive answers or memorable ones?
I want to see that somebody has an absolute fascination with how businesses are built and grow. I want to see that they've got in mind, they want to discover. They do want to discover the next thing, and they want to put money behind it. They want to help with that, kind of get that execution. There's that satisfaction of there are thousands of companies created each year. How do you pick the handful that are going to be successful for the next 10 years? We make an investment of $500,000 to $5 million, and then we're usually with those companies from 6 to 10 years, say, before we might exit, yeah, or before the fund closes. So we want those people who are excited about the idea that you're going to be making a really hard decision in quite a short amount of time, very heavily research based. We really want to see that you're not only got that fascination for discovery and finding those gems, as it were, but also willing to do the due diligence and the research behind it, and you'll go about that any which way that you need to, the resourcefulness. And we want to see that you understand the implication about the kind of very long term. One of the more impressive applications we ever got, it wasn't actually me who was running it, but yeah, one of my more impressive colleagues, she'd done an insanely, we have an exercise that everyone that is included in the process, we asked them what are the pick 2 or 3 companies from the region that, given that you would invest $1 million into in X or Y space, whatever industry or business model, mm-hmm, whatever. That's one of the things. So we want to know that you can go out and pick. We don't need you they're usually we've usually already done the research on the space. We're not using that stuff that you send us, and we're not looking for the correct answers, yeah, that we just want to know that you recognize what our style of investment is, that you get a feel for how we make decisions, and how you justify that investment. Then it's things like how would you structure a fund, and how do you identify what are the key things to look for in a good solid company. Again, there's no correct answer to this, but we get some seriously detailed answers. We never tell people how long it should be, so sometimes we get half-page submissions. That is not going to cut it. my colleague did an insanely detailed submission. It was something like 18 or 19 pages, something crazy. No. And she has been brilliant. Like, she has been absolutely brilliant. And I asked her, like, why did you do that? Why did you do such a detailed submission? Where did that come from? Yeah. And she said, I just picture it. And just to add, this is somebody who did a marketing degree.
Not your traditional finance
background. Not the traditional finance background. In fact, we've not actually hired someone from an IB or a consultancy. So, yeah, so we don't necessarily see that as, you know, the guaranteed way to get in. It's actually quite interesting getting people from different backgrounds. Yes. But she said the reason I did it was because I thought about, what if this was my $50,000 or my $250,000? Like, I would want to know all, I would, you know, how the amount of detail, there couldn't be enough detail you could give me in order to persuade me that this is a good idea. And that was genuinely, although it wasn't me who interviewed her, that was one of the most impressive things I've heard come out of anyone that I've either worked with or interviewed about your approach to convincing us. We advertised it for 2 weeks and we got 2,000 applicants. Like, and there's some really, like, some great people in there. Yeah. But like, we are obviously creaming off the top of the top. Like, I don't want to put too many people off, but just be aware it takes time. We are also gonna, if someone knows, not just knows the companies that we've invested in, but knows their stories, has done their research in terms of what's been successful, what the exits were like you can't necessarily find that information publicly or Googling it or whatever. Like, you need to network to get that.
Well, now is a pretty good time for us to talk about other roles in startups.
Generally, like, the 4 markets which are best for startups at the moment are Singapore, Indonesia, Vietnam and Thailand. Those are the best ecosystem. Unfortunately, the rest of Southeast Asia isn't quite there yet.
So in terms of foreign talent trying to come in, are there certain countries where you've seen their higher rate of success for them?
Like, if you can, honestly, it's super impressive if we see someone who goes into Indonesia, Vietnam or Thailand, whatever. If you can get those places, obviously, like, I mean, frankly, the salary is not going to be as good. It's still gonna be okay, and you're going to be able to live off it. Like, it's, you know, it's not that bad, but like, compared to Singapore, it's going to be a different level. But the experience and the exposure and the respect you will get from going to these places and getting experience on the ground of where the actual customers are for most of the startups, that it's super impressive. So we actually see quite a few people who like do 2 or 3 years on the ground in one of these countries, and then they might look to come over to Singapore, say, or if they're, you know, they've gotten really into that place, they might stay, or go on to another another country with a bigger population, whatever. Like, we're starting to see it a lot more than we ever did before, and it's really cool to see.
Jumping back to a little bit of like the job prospects here. So I kind of want to just go over, you know, in a startup, you have your sales. Okay, so we'll touch a little bit on that, and then you have like marketing, operational roles, and then technical roles. There's a few different technical roles here, but let's talk about, you know, a lot of the questions are, is it difficult to get a role as a software engineer with a few years work experience? Operational roles are a little bit more challenging. Let's just kind of like go over each one.
Singapore specifically is one of the best places in the world for data science and analytics in general.
You mean the talent pool is available
talent pool and the products that are being built here. Okay. It's actually one of the best places in the world. And we actually see a lot of the, because I used to recruit in this area specifically, a lot of the people that I used to talk to and recruit, a lot of them are in San Francisco now. So it's actually a really good place to get exposure. If you're kind of thinking of going over to San Francisco, Singapore's now got this kind of, it feels like it's got this branding now where it's like it could be a good path to get hired over there. So yeah, it's a really, like, Singapore's made a massive effort to make this a data science hub. Like, it's definitely the best in Southeast Asia. It's one of the best in the whole of Asia.
Yeah.
And it's a place where you get the mix of, yes, you learn the back end side of it, but you also learn the business side of things as well. Most of the tech startups, even if they're based in Indonesia, some of them, quite a few of them I know, will have their data science set up or analytics set up here. So it's really advantageous. Can you come over from other schools in the world? Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think particularly data science analytics is a strong area to come over from. Getting engineers who can communicate. We do, like, it's difficult to get that combination here. Like, we can get good back-end people, we can get good front-end people, front-end developers, whatever, but getting them who can also communicate and translate ideas into products is a harder skill to find here. And I find that people coming over from, like, North America and Europe are better equipped at that. And so there's a lot of people who will take a look. Like, so you look at Gojek, which is one of the biggest unicorns here. You look at their data science engineering team; they're from all over the world.
Actually, yeah.
It's super strong. To me, there's kind of the engineers who have, and this kind of goes for other parts of the business as well. If you've done something which is a totally new area for that business, where you've kind of taken something from 0 to 1, that stands out, and any experience, whether it's actually in a company or not, like if you
side projects,
if you do, like, you know, you could go and work for, like, you know, especially things like Kaggle projects and things like that in data science, or on, you know, you work on a project on GitHub, and make yourself a constant contributor on that. Like, here's my GitHub page. Usually if someone's like, here's my GitHub page, you're like, okay, this person, like, probably, like, compared to someone who doesn't have a GitHub page, whatever, it might be crap, but, like, the likelihood is, if you're putting out there that you've got a GitHub page, and you've done plenty of submissions, you probably go to that next level of nerdery, geekery, is that fair to say?
And then in terms of the other types of roles at startups, so operations is quite difficult, relative.
Yeah, I'd say it unless you've done it for, like, honestly, if someone's done something for a startup in, like, especially in North America, or Western Europe, if they've worked on a mature product there, and there's somebody building something similar over here, it can be one of the easiest ways to transition. So if you've been working for a ride-hailing app or a food delivery app, and you're worked on, like, you know, helping to build up the customer operations side of things there, and you're moving to there's a company who's looking to do something similar over here, the fact that you've seen a company grow through that and create that team and made their decisions is going to mean that you're going to be really useful to them, because you have additional knowledge of how that's done in another part of the world where it's already been successful. Obviously, it's not going to be done exactly the same, but roughly the principles
relevant
of that.
experience.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that relevant experience stands out massively. But yeah, if we're talking about business operations, it's just more tricky. It's not impossible, it's just more tricky.
Usually folks are more experienced, right?
Yeah, and, like, it's like, you know, for HR, people are going to want, generally, unless it's like strategic leadership side of things, you want people who are local, because they are dealing with people and they're dealing with culture, and it's going to be far more local, so they want people who understand that. And so if they are going to hire someone in a business operations, they better have deep experience. So you're talking 8, 10, 12 years at least before they'll take somebody on that side. Whereas the other part of the business, sales for sure, is something which is just hard to find people who want to do sales. It's like, if I can find people who can do, who want to do a whole career in sales here, I'm like, ah. Plus, Plus, specifically, if you're willing to be a hunter, somebody who goes and knocks on doors, goes and finds businesses that want to spend with you, or new customers, and that like hardcore BD side of things, like there's not enough people who want to do that in their career. Product roles as well, generally, like UI, UX, like that is always, finding good enough quality people in that is always difficult. There's never enough of those. So product people in general, data, UI, UX, engineering side of things, like, and product managers themselves, those are always high in demand. Digital marketing is actually another one, because it's a little bit technical. Yeah, it's high demand because everyone who's setting up a startup is gonna, like, they're almost certainly gonna first and foremost focus on digital marketing. Finance is another. Finance is really well covered locally. Yeah. Like, if you're the first people who are gonna hire, like an accountant and a controller and things like that, you need to know how it works locally, and you know, you got to know kind of how it works to communicate locally with people here. That's not going to be something you can come in from day one.
I think we pretty much hit all the questions this time under these categories. I think if you guys found this video helpful, which I really hope you did because we spent so much time filming this. If you guys have any other questions about any of the topics we covered, leave a comment down below. But for now, the camera's gonna die, so let's say bye. Thank you for watching! Thanks for doing this video!
No worries.